I'll figure it out.
I know you will, but you don't have to do it alone, that's all I'm saying.
If I promise to look into it, will you drop it and help me build this fence?
Now you need my help.
It can be a real pain sometimes, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
If you or a veteran you know needs support, don't wait. Reach out. Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Is it time yet?
It's time.
Punch down chocolate dinner.
Oh, terrific.
Punch down dinner.
I kept thinking I was gonna die that night.
What we see is officers treating people less than human. What I think when I hear that these videos are delayed is that Louisiana State Police is working to get their story together.
I kept thinking I was gonna die that night because all I can do was breathe, you know, and try to keep myself from just going out because he got my face mashed down in my pot of water. You know, I was scared.
There exists a mindset at Louisiana Police that they do not see the humanity in Black and brown people. When they see our children crying, they don't see theirs. And that is a testament to the pattern and practice that exists, that we could brutalize people as a state official, murder them, and not have any remorse. The murder of Ronald Green, for example, where Trooper Hollingsworth bragged that he beat the ever-loving F word out of him. And I want you to sit with for a second the humanity of his mother having to sit there and watch her child brutalized while he said, "I'm your brother." That's what Mr. Green told them. And so they don't see the humanity in us. Instead, they use their badge as a tool to lynch them. Call your U.S. congressman and U.S. senator and ask them to pressure the DOJ to open a pattern and practice investigation. I think that's the biggest thing that people can do at this point.
Mr. Byrne. Good evening. Hotep Habarigani Assalamu Alaikum. I'm your sister Khadijah along with brother Jay. And you do know that it is customary in the African tradition that before we speak to the community, we get permission from one of our elders. Out there, I'm asking elder in the control room, can you give us permission to speak?
You have my permission.
Thank you so very much. Now, we're going to get right to the point. Bad cops in Louisiana. I mean, myself, Brother Jay, we've experienced this over and over again. Reverend Brown, Brother Shahid, so many of us has experienced this over and over again. Trayvon Martin, killed by Lafayette Police Department, and he was walking into the store. pitiful death by about 6 to 8 officers that shot him. I mean, trained police officers. Well, let's just get to the gut of it. Mr. Burns, how you doing? I know you have a fantastic podcast. Sound Off.
Well, thank you so much. It's good to be with you again.
Yes. Sound Off.
Sound Off, Louisiana.
Sound Off, Louisiana. Okay, we're gonna be pulling up your graphics. So, tell us what is your definition, Mr. Burns, about bad cops in Louisiana?
Well, to me, bad cops would be ones that don't want to be held accountable. And what I mean by that is we have body-worn cameras for a reason. And if they're not engaging in problematic acts, there should be no reason to turn that camera off. And yet, we have found out over the last, I guess, 2 to 2.5 years, because I certainly was ignorant, I'm just going to say it, to the fact that leadership at LSP doesn't even frown upon, or hasn't historically. Maybe that'll change going forward. But it's almost as if it was a God-given right to turn the camera off. And what we have learned is that a lot of things happen when those cameras go off. And I'm sorry to say this, but I really do believe we would all be better off if those cameras were controlled by a computer in a central location that was programmed about when it would be acceptable to turn them off. Because I'm sorry, but I have lost confidence in troopers to be proper and leave those cameras on. And I just don't know any other way to say it. So.
And doing your investigation or your research, how do Louisiana stand when it comes down to the ranking of police brutality?
Well, I think I can answer that question in the fact that the first time in 20 years, the Department of Justice is having to launch a pattern and practices investigation, the first statewide such investigation in over 20 years. That tells you all you need to know about. They didn't just up and do this. They didn't fall out of bed and decide to do this. There are serious problems, and hopefully they're making progress. I think they've had about 1.5 years now. It's my understanding these things typically take 2 to 3 years. So I hope they're well into it. And I would have to say we got to rank near the bottom because no other state is having this done.
Yes. And we have the book right here by Mr. Cavalier. That is the gentleman that exposed the atrocity that of them beating Mr. Brown. Mr. Green. He has this book, and the book is NWA. And what do you think about Mr. Cavalier? I really feel that Mr. Cavalier needs to get the NAACP award or a life award for all of his contribution that he has.
Are you asking Mr. Cavalier or me?
Oh no, Mr. Cavalier is not on. I was showing the book. I was asking you.
I'm sorry. Okay. Well, I just put out a feature within the last few hours with regard to the tremendous toll that Trooper Cavalier paid for having gone public. As everyone I would imagine is aware, he lost his job. He has been fighting to get a hearing before the Louisiana State Police Commission to get his job back. And by rights, he has the right to have a hearing. Now, through a series of events that would take a little while to explain, they have been able to deny him that hearing. But he has just recently filed what's called a writ of mandamus, and it will be heard on August the 7th. You can mark that date down on your calendar, August the 7th at 10 a.m. And it will be heard in front of Judge Don Johnson in 19th Judicial District Court. I would encourage those who believe in Carl's acts here to show up and support him. I will be there in a reporting capacity, obviously, but I would encourage anyone to be there, and pack that courtroom.
Yes, and that's going to be August the 7th.
August the 7th at 10 a.m. It'll be at 19th Judicial District Court, which is in downtown Baton Rouge.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Burns. This is Brother Jay here, co-host with Sister Khadijah tonight. We're sitting in for Brother Darrell Muhammad on the Community Defender for all those watching online and on Facebook and YouTube. Listen, I just want to say thank you for putting out a great online news magazine / newsletter podcast, man. We really appreciate some interesting information. There's an article that caught my attention, and I think we kind of touched on it in the past, where in NOLA.com, which is the Advocate, the Acadiana Advocate in Lafayette and the Advocate in Baton Rouge and all over the state. There's an article that came out a couple of weeks ago said, Louisiana rarely bans police convicted or fired for abuse. This has been a failure. I don't know if you saw the article.
I did.
It was by Mr. Joseph Craney. I don't know, what's your opinion on that, since you're a journalist yourself?
Well, I think the article was outstanding, and I think it shows the great disparity between how problematic acts are handled in other states versus the way they're handled in Louisiana. And when you read that article, you have little reason to wonder why things are as bad as they are.
Right.
Because there just is no adequate system of checks and balances, and things are more easily swept under the rug by way of transferring officers from one jurisdiction to another. And it's in a word, pathetic. I mean, I don't know any other word to use. And I've lived in Louisiana all of my life. I'm almost 60. And I hate to use words like that, but the truth is the truth.
Yeah, and one of the aspects of the article was giving the comparison, I think it was Georgia, where they decommission an average of 800 officers a year, and compared to Louisiana, we rarely decommission one a year. That is surely troubling.
It's very troubling, and now it's almost impossible to go an entire week without seeing some article of, and I don't mean minor wrongdoing, I mean pretty significant wrongdoing.
Yes.
And it's also, I think, problematic in that our initial recruitment of, I can certainly speak for Louisiana State Police, when you allow troopers or cadets, I should say, get provided with answers to the exam such that they don't even have to pay any attention in class, and that's happened extensively. Is it really any wonder when you turn them loose out there on the street that they don't even know what they're doing, because they were never forced to learn the proper techniques to start with? Then you throw in an episode where you get a former LSP colonel from North Louisiana, and apparently that emboldened some folk. It's only words I know to say. And just look what a disaster ensued.
Yes, indeed. Mr. Burns, there is a law, or was it already passed, where anybody that's observing the police officer, we have to stand 20 feet from them? Is that 25?
Well, maybe Tuesday they might override the governor's a veto of the law they tried to enact. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's exactly what Brother Jay said is exactly correct. The bill did pass, and Governor Edwards, that's one of the bills he chose to veto. But as I'm sure you're aware, they'll be having a veto override session beginning Tuesday at noon. That obviously the main bill they're targeting, I think it's House Bill 468, the one that allowed the alteration of gender through hormone treatments and things like this for minors. If it hadn't been for that bill, they probably would not even have an override session. but there has been some talk that they're going to include House Bill 85.
Right.
In my opinion, they don't have the votes to override House Bill 85, to override his veto on that. But I learned a long time ago, votes can be hard to count at that legislature.
Yeah.
Yes. And so you did send a sound. You did send a sound off for August the 7th at 10 o'clock that we need to pack the 19 judicial court in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, that's correct. That's where the hearing will be held, and you know, in federal court, your ability to have any influence at all is maybe a little bit less because they're appointed. State judges are elected, but you know, also, I mean, Carl's having to represent himself now. He's pro se, so the fact of the matter is, he should have had the hearings. They were postponed several times, not through any fault of his own. The reason they got postponed is because former LSP top brass, namely Jason Turner, Kevin Reeves, all of these people dishonored subpoenas. And so they were continued, not through any fault of Carl Cavalier. They were continued is the same as postponed. For those that may not, that's a word used in courts, but they were continued because of those actions. And yet, as you will look at the video on the piece I just put out, Chairman Simeon misrepresented in saying that, oh no, those continuances occurred in order to allow Mr. Cavalier the opportunity to fully cultivate his case. Nothing could be further from the truth. Jill Craft was fully prepared to go forward with that thing back on April of 2022. Now, as y'all know, a lot has happened since then.
Yes.
He should have had the hearing. There was a CNN camera there at the April meeting, and I think that had a huge effect on why everything got
canceled.
Downplayed, and the next thing you know, he's being offered $200,000. And once he inadvertently, apparently did make an oral statement after Jill Craft, his prior attorneys say browbeat him. Well, they've made him stick to that one utterance of okay, despite the fact it was never reduced to writing. I don't think there was a meeting of the minds, but obviously my opinion doesn't count. It's a federal judge's opinion that does count, and he has said there was a meeting of the minds, and he has issued an order forcing Carl Cavalier to take the money and never be a trooper again.
Isn't that something? The money, I mean, we really need to call that some little change, because that's what that is. Because even when you take out the little $250,000, you got about $150,000 in attorney fee. What you supposed to do on that? That's just some little lam-yap. That's just some little change.
And Carl came to that realization very quickly. This is not, the offer got made in September, early September, late August of 2022. And literally the next day, Carl was saying, look, I don't want to do this. He's not, and you don't have to take Carl's word for it. There's a link in this most recent feature that I just put out where he recorded, I think quite wisely, he recorded his phone conversations with Jill Craft. And anybody can go and listen to him. His position never changed. He did not want to do this. But somehow, some way, they deem it to be agreed to, and I've used the word of cramming it down his throat, and I feel like that's what they're doing. I mean, how else can you describe it?
Right, and when you say Jill Craft, we had a Craft from Lafayette, who was the chief of police, who was in charge of the police department here in Lafayette, and he's working for.
I think he's on the Commission for Law Enforcement.
Right.
I think.
Yeah, he is, and he was he was a corrupt police officer. He was involved with prostitution, involved with so many other things, and instead of firing him like they would have done myself or Brother J or you, they decided to give him a raise, and he went work in Baton Rouge for the governor.
But let me ask you something, Mr. Burns. That commission, that police commission, is that a commission set up for the Louisiana State Police, or is generalized covering all the police jurisdiction?
It is strictly for state police.
Okay.
We are the only state in the nation that has such a thing, and the other 49 states do not. Ostensibly, it was supposed to protect troopers when they had been wronged. And I think what makes this situation unique, you have to realize 6 out of the 7 members are appointed by the governor. The 7th member is elected by the troopers, but that member's typically just gone along with the other 6. And you have a very unique situation this time in that the governor is, in my opinion, not just up to his eyeballs in this, in the water, but you can barely see the strands of his hair. He's in that deep. And so these, in my opinion, these members of the police commission, it would probably, Jill Craft flatly said, you cannot win with this crew, and she may be right, but if that's the case, then I think Carl ought to have the right to have it heard by whether it be the Division of Administrative Law or whomever, but another entity that would not be stacked if that's what the case is here. If she's right about you have no chance. Now she says that. I don't know that we can accept her at her word, because I think she was heavily influenced when that money came around. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we that is a powerful information that you're giving to the audience. And Brother Jay, we also we're streaming live.
Yes, on Facebook right now.
Okay, and we need to send this footage to CNN all over the entire world, because they need to know what's going on in Louisiana. And I'm from Louisiana, born here in Louisiana, and I talk about the atrocities here in our state because we need to talk about it. We need to know it. And who better than a Louisianan to talk about what is going on? You know, we want to keep people informed, which is exactly what you do with Sound Off. We have our other sister, Miss Parker. Brother Jay, you was able.
Well, we was able to make contact with Miss Mona Harden's family member, and they might call in later. We don't have it right now written in stone, but hopefully we could get them on the line and put everybody together. One of the other articles you have on your Sound Off, people go to Sound Off Louisiana, soundoffla.com if you want to find some interesting articles that Mr. Burns has penned, especially some eye-opening stuff that people don't have privy to, because we know the mainstream media does not cover these things in depth like Mr. Burns does.
That's right.
And one of the articles you have about, the headline reads, "One day after being ordered to produce a bill of particulars on York, Clary, Harpin, and Union Parish Assistant DA, Hugo Hollins complies on one of the 2 counts on Harpin, 8 of the 9 counts on York, but so far nothing recorded on Clary." What's the crux of that article?
Well, the crux of it is that there was an evidentiary hearing held on June 23rd because the defense attorneys are all claiming that the state did not specify the exact acts, and when I say exact acts, they want it right down to the second, on any video where, let's just take York, for example, though they're similar. York is accused of committing 10 batteries against, Ronald Green. But they don't tell you anything. I've read the indictment. They don't tell you anything about what nature of the battery is, at what point it happened. And so the defense attorney said, this isn't going to cut it. You're going to have to tell us exactly what it was that our defendants did.
Yes.
Now Hugo Holland had fought that, saying it wasn't required, but D.A. Belton, he didn't realize it. Holland didn't realize it, but Belton had already promised that they would give the bill of particulars for each defendant. So they wound up doing it on Tuesday of last week, because the judge on Monday of last week said, I'm giving you 3 days, because the statute actually says that's the maximum amount of time he could give. So they did file bill of particulars. I will tell you that every single alleged battery is derived from an expert use of force report authored by Steph Stoughton. And I can tell you that I know that York's defense attorneys, namely Mike Small and T. Taylor Townsend, are probably doing backflips right now because they have made it clear that they intend to attack that report with vigor if it was used to prop up any indictments. And we now know that not only is the Stoughton report propping them up, it's the sole plank that they're all riding on now.
Well, that is some powerful information.
In your opinion, Mr. Byrne, where you think the case stands as far as it will be all of us who want to push for justice for the Ronald Green around Louisiana, around the world, should we be somewhat disappointed in this case at this
we're already disappointed.
Time? Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. I think it's way beyond disappointing. And I'll tell you why. I'll try to keep this as short as I can. But particularly in the case of York, because there are only still 13 counts out there altogether. 10 of them are with York. And unfortunately, the state, beyond the bill of particulars situation, I think they have a very strong, and I hate to say that word, but they have a very strong argument if District Attorney Belton did this, and that's exactly what Mike Small, York's attorney, is saying he did. Apparently, well, not apparently, York was called into Internal Affairs to give a statement on September the 15th of 2020. He was told, hey, you can have an attorney. He waived that. He was told that you have to be truthful with us in this interview. Okay, I'll be truthful. But they also told him that nothing you say in this interview can be used in any way, shape, or form in any criminal prosecution against you. Well, the Stoughton report, according to Mike Small, took a bunch of quotes made by York at that September 15th Internal Affairs meeting, and then that was incorporated into the Stoughton report, which Mike Small says that D.A. Belton handed to the grand jurors, and Small is contending that my client never would have been indicted had that report not been in those grand jurors' hands. So Small is claiming that York's fifth constitutional right, Fifth Amendment against self-incrimination, have been violated. Wow. If that is the case, then I do think all 10 of them are. That's just my opinion. I'm not an attorney, right, but I think all 10 of those all 10 of those counts are hanging on by a thread. And I'm just going to be blunt about it. District Attorney Belton certainly should have known you cannot just hand jurors material in which a defendant makes statements that incriminate him. So, as you probably have seen, I've not given too flattering of commentary for District Attorney Belton. Right. I've tried to be as understanding as I can, but the reality is this has been a very weak and haphazard and disorganized prosecution, and I don't know any other way to say it.
Well, what's the chance of the feds coming in and
taking over that, or doing a separate? Because I understand the feds right now are supposed to be actively pursuing what we all see it, the cover up.
The cover up.
But that's going to be geared toward the higher levels. I think the Fed's initial strategy was, because I feel quite certain they did not want to turn it over to Belton, but they had to throw in the towel. This is just my theory. When the period for impaneling their own grand jury was about to run out, and they couldn't get 16 out of 23 grand jurors to indict Green, so as a last-ditch effort, they threw it over to Belton and said, if you can just get us something, then I think their plan was to use those indictments to hold it over the heads of the troopers on the scene to get them to roll on the higher brass. Unfortunately, the way this thing is played out, I don't see any of those. Number one, their attorney said, we aren't making any deal, none. And I think with the way this has played out so far, they have almost no incentive, because I think the prospects for successful convictions in the matter up in Farmerville are pretty bleak.
Ooh, yes, indeed. Mr. Burns, we're going to have to do an entire show with just you. Maybe you come into Lafayette so we could go ahead and just be in person with all of that good information. I know you want to let people know about the August 7th meeting in Baton Rouge.
Yes, and it's more than a meeting; it's a court hearing.
Court hearing.
So you'll see LSP having their defense attorneys, and unless something changes, Carl will be representing himself. But Carl, he's pretty.
Yes.
He's pretty. Yeah. Y'all know what? He didn't fall off the turnip truck, so you know, it's always difficult when you're going up against a lawyer, but if anybody can do it, he can do it. You know, so.
Yes, yes. And we're going to see you there. I'm talking it into, listen, I'm talking it into existence. Brother Jay and I are going to be there. If anybody want to ride with us, y'all just give us a call, but we going.
That sounds good. And if by chance, if anything happens, because I'm quite sure state police will probably try to file something to push that date back, but if they do and the judge changes it, or if anything else happens that it won't happen, I will certainly let you know. But otherwise, I look forward to seeing both of y'all August the 7th at 10 a.m.
Yes, indeed, and you sure will. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sound off Louisiana.
Yeah, Mr. Robert Burns.
Yes.
One of the best informative information on what's going on in the state of Louisiana, and he's from here, just like we talk about Louisiana because we are from here, and who better to talk about it than those of us that was born and raised here.
Well, thank y'all so much for having me on the show again.
Thank you, and continue to watch.
Yes.
Oh, I will, absolutely.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So, Brother Jay, Mr. Robert Burns, he laid it all out for us in plain English.
Yes, certainly disappointing. And I've been critical of D.A. Belton. I know others haven't. Sometimes you wonder why things happen, why the dominoes fall the way they fall, because you know, he had said he was running for Attorney General, then he as he took on the case of Ronald Green, and then all of a sudden he dropped out of the Attorney General race, and he said he was going to focus on the case, and then he brings in supposedly a hired gun. What's his name? I'm gonna pull him up again, but his name came up in a lot of negative issues concerning the death penalty and so forth, because he's somewhat of an ultra-conservative when it comes to crime and justice, and we got to wonder if some of his dealings are more favorable to law enforcement, right or wrong, and that's the problem with having someone else prosecute the case. There's a chance that somebody might want to just mess it up.
Right, and look, this is not something that just happened overnight. We've had bad cops throughout our existence of Louisiana. You take, for instance, I want you to see, this is dealing with Chad Hazelwood Jr. Chad Hazelwood Jr. He living right now in Louisville, but his daddy was a state trooper. Now, Chad Hazelwood Jr. went to serve a warrant and went to the wrong house. So the young lady tells him, well, no, I don't know nobody that stays there. And so she closed the door to call her mama. He bust the door open. He beat up Deshauna real bad, and then claimed she was resisting arrest and all this other kind of stuff. So they went to court. I want you to see this. This is Chad Hazelwood right there, and the young lady was clear of all of the battery charges on a police officer. Now, Chad Hazelwood Jr. Has always been corrupt. Brother Jay, wasn't there something that he had done with with looking up people information?
As an undercover officer for the New Ivory City Police, he had a code with somewhat of a similar type job, working in conjunction with the federal agents of the DEA, and he went. I think he committed some type of malfeasance by accessing the government computers, DEA computers to look up information for his private venture.
Right,
and so he was. I think he pled guilty to something like that.
Right, and got a little slap on the wrist.
Right.
Caller, you have a question or a comment? You're live with Community Defender.
Yeah, I got a comment. Y'all doing a great job. This is the local radio insurrectionist. I'm not going to insurrect y'all show today, but
thank you.
Y'all doing a great job in giving the information that the people do need to hear, and it's all bad cops. Even the justice system who supports them.
You're right.
And until we call the top out, we shouldn't be messing with the bottom, because these cops are following orders from their head office, which is the DAs, who controls the crime. They are the ones that's causing this commotion, because they're not taking care of everybody and anybody. They're taking care of the cops, and they're giving them rewards to discriminate against the people that they want to keep in bondage. And it hurts the black people, but it also hurts the white people, because if you see all the lawsuits that this country has paid behind their ignorance, this is why we are in poverty, because of their ignorance. So keep talking about it, keep bringing other people on, especially white people, because they are the change. Because if they don't understand, they're going to be the one hurting from their children's. So keep talking what y'all saying.
Okay, and when you mention that we have like they couldn't get away with what they get away with because of the simple fact you got the district attorney, the coroner, the one that examines the body. You know, he's in cahoots with them also. I got dogged. I can't think.
Well, the system is deep like that.
Yeah, it's deep like that. And look, rampant prosecutorial misconduct. In the justice system, prosecutors have the power to decide what criminal charges to bring. And since 97% of cases are resolved without a trial, those decisions are almost always the most important factor in the outcome. That is why it is so important for prosecutors to play fair, not just to win. This obligation is embodied in the Supreme Court's 1963 holding in Bradley versus Maryland, which requires prosecutors to provide the defense with any exculpatory evidence that could materially affect